The gavel slammed down so hard that it cracked. Karen Mitchell, self-crowned queen of the Willow Bend HOA, was on her feet screaming, "He's a fraud. He can't evict us. This is illegal." And beside me, a sheriff's deputy held a stack of eviction orders with my name printed at the top. Yeah, that's me, the guy who legally evicted the entire HOA from their own homes. But before you judge me, let me tell you how the HOA stole everything from my family and how I took it all back. It started on a warm morning, sunlight spilling across my southern pasture. Old Jim from the post office rattled up in his dusty blue pickup, gave me a look that twisted my gut, and handed me a stack of letters thick as a Bible. Foreclosure notices, unpaid maintenance fees, court-ordered auction. My heart hammered so loud I couldn't hear the birds anymore. My 150-acre ranch, my inheritance, my entire world, had been seized and sold by the Willow Bend HOA. I staggered backward, the sun suddenly too bright, the earth tilting under me. This had to be a mistake, some clerical hiccup, a glitch in the universe. I was never part of any HOA. Our ranch predated Willow Bend by a century. My great-granddaddy carved this place out of raw wilderness with nothing but a Winchester and stubborn will. But the documents didn't lie. At the town records office, I slammed the foreclosure letter in front of Daniel, the twitchy clerk with fog glasses. He typed, and after a long silence, turned the monitor toward me. There it was, a special annexation Willow Bend HOA filed 6 months earlier, illegally adding my ranch to their district. They'd sent fee notices to an address I'd never heard of. When I didn't pay, they slapped a lien on my land, foreclosed, and sold it to their own members for pennies. Karen Mitchell bought the Creekside parcels. Her vice president, Todd, took the Northern Hills. Even their secretaries snatched up my grandfather's old cattle pens. They carved up my legacy like a carcass on a butcher block, laughing while they did it. That night, I sat on the tailgate of my truck, the foreclosure letter crushed in my fist. The ranch house glowed gold against the sunset, refusing to surrender. And I made myself a promise under those wide Texas stars. I was going to take it all back. Every acre, every inch. And when I was done, Karen Mitchell would wish she'd never heard my name. By sunrise, I was in old Mr. Harlan's law office, surrounded by dusty boxes and deeds older than the state fair. We found forgeries, sloppy copies with identical loops, fake public notices, illegal surveys, a county commissioner rubber-stamping everything, who just happened to be Karen's brother-in-law. But the Rayall bomb dropped 2 weeks later. I rushed into the office, still covered in sweat and dust. Jenny slid a century-old leather-bound ledger across the desk, a covenant, filed by my great-granddaddy in 1910. A hidden clause stating the land could never be subdivided without approval from direct descendants. And if anyone tried, all ownership would automatically revert back to the original family line. Mine. The HOA didn't just steal my fields. They built their entire subdivision on stolen ground. Their deeds? Voidable. Their mortgages? Built on sand. Their homes? Legally, tenants on my ranch. My blood ran cold. My hope roared back to life. Harlan leaned back, grinning. "Son, they didn't steal your land. They built themselves a prison and handed you the keys." Ranchers learn patience. You wait for the right wind, then strike. So I set up shell companies, Sandstone Holdings, Prairie Ventures, Twin Rock Properties. I hired straw buyers, played the broke rancher, showed up to open houses pretending to be a curious cousin, and quietly, steadily, I bought Willow Bend from the inside out. Defaulted homes, job transfers, foreclosures. By the end of year 1, I own a third of the neighborhood. By year 2, 64%. Enough for a supermajority. Enough to rewrite bylaws, replace the board, or dissolve the HOA entirely. Karen never suspected a thing. She was too busy handing out citations for Christmas lights and lemonade stands. The day I struck, I walked into the Willow Bend Community Center holding a leather folder heavier than a tombstone. Karen sat at the head table in pearls, smiling like she owned the world. "You can't just barge in here," she snapped. I dropped my documents on the table. "According to your bylaws, any member with 50% representation may call a meeting at any time." I showed every LLC, every property, all mine, and then I laid out the truth. The 1910 covenant, the forged signatures, the illegal annexation, the commissioner's confession, our lawsuit, the injunction suspending the HOA effective immediately. Karen went pale. Todd sat down slowly. The room froze. 6 months later, the judge issued a 23-page scorcher. HOA dissolved. Every lien void. Every foreclosure canceled. Board members personally liable for millions. Karen lost her mansion. Todd faced contempt charges. Their secretary moved back with her mother. I seized the clubhouse, parks, trails, everything that once bore the Willow Bend name. Eviction day was quiet, orderly, legal. Former board members became tenants overnight, and they owed rent to me. Karen held out the longest, filed every motion, cried on the news, but the sheriff's notice didn't care about her theatrics. Her jewelry was auctioned, her cars, her boat, her timeshares. Piece by piece, the Mitchell empire crumbled. The day the sheriff escorted her out, she didn't scream. She didn't fight. She just stared at the land she once tried to steal. Now officially, legally, undeniably mine. I bulldozed the HOA office while the neighbors cheered, replaced it with a dog park named Granger's Run after my great-granddaddy. Without the HOA's chokehold, the neighborhood bloomed. Gardens, flagpoles, kids riding bikes past sunset. I restored the ranch, repaired fences, reseeded pastures, dug new wells. And every evening, I sat on the porch watching the sun melt over land that had survived theft, greed, and corruption, and come home to me. A year after the final ruling, I burned the old Willow Bend sign myself, painted a new one. Simple, unshakable. Welcome to Freedom Fields. No HOA allowed. I tipped my hat to the fading sun. The breeze carried sage and mesquite across the land. No one would ever steal from my family again. The fight was over. The land was free. And so was I. Even after the HOA was gone, their ghosts lingered. At sunrise, I'd walk the old trails behind the clubhouse, now mine, and find pieces of their rules scattered like bones. A broken citation sign, a faded, approved landscaping only, notice nailed to an oak, a pile of abandoned binders full of fines and fees they'd slapped on families for things as harmless as kids' bicycles on porches. I stood there, fingers brushing over the dusty binder covers, and felt a strange heaviness in my chest. These were people who'd been bullied, exhausted, silenced. They'd lived with fear of an HOA board that treated power like a sacred birthright. For years, they had nobody to fight for them. I closed my eyes and whispered, "You're free now." That was the day Willow Bend truly died, and something better began to grow. A week later, boxes of documents were delivered to my ranch. Records that the court forced the HOA to surrender. I didn't expect what I found. Letters. Hundreds of them. Handwritten pleas from residents begging the HOA to stop harassing them. Requests to waive outrageous fees. Appeals for fairness. Tears smeared on envelopes. Photos of families threatened with foreclosure over technicalities. I sat alone at my kitchen table, sorting through them as the sun set behind the hills. A mother begging Karen not to fine her for installing a wheelchair ramp. An old veteran asking for an extension on his dues after medical bills drained his savings. A couple fined for inappropriate holiday decor because their lights weren't white. Reading them broke something inside me. This fight wasn't just about my ranch anymore. It was about every family this HOA had trampled. I promised myself that Willow Bend would never return, not in any form, not under any name. And I meant it. I should have known they wouldn't give up. 3 months after their eviction, the former board members, Karen included, filed a desperate appeal. They hired new lawyers, launched PR campaigns, tried to paint me as some land-grabbing tyrant. One evening, as the sky burned orange, Karen herself showed up near the fence line. standing on the public road, screaming across the wire. You ruined our lives. You stole everything. I leaned against the fence post, calm as the breeze rolling through the sagebrush. No, I said quietly. You stole from me. I just took back what was already mine. She hurled insults, threatened lawsuits, promised vengeance. But she looked smaller than I'd ever seen her, like a queen without a kingdom, clutching a crown made of dust. The sheriff arrived minutes later, guiding her away as she cried. It didn't feel like victory, just closure. Some wars don't end with triumph. They end with truth. Victory has a strange aftertaste. Some nights, sitting on my porch under a sky full of stars, I'd feel the weight of everything that had happened. My land was safe, my rights restored, justice delivered. But the fight changed me, turned me into someone sharper, harder, forged in fire and stubborn resolve. I wondered if my great-granddaddy ever felt this way, if standing guard over this land made him just as protective, just as fierce. The wind rustled the mesquite, leaves like a whisper. You did what had to be done. I stared at the ranch stretching beyond the horizon and felt tears sting my eyes. Not of sadness, but of release. Winning didn't erase the scars, but it made the battle worth every slash. On the first spring after the victory, the community gathered on my ranch for a celebration, something Willow Bend never allowed. Kids ran through open fields. Couples grilled under the oaks. Elders told stories on quilts spread across the grass. At sunset, I walked up the hill where my great-granddaddy once stood surveying land he carved from wilderness. The breeze carried laughter, not fear. Music, not warnings. Life, not rules. And I realized something. The HOA didn't just lose. The people won. Families who once were behind blinds were now planting gardens, waving flags, hanging porch swings without fear of fines. Freedom was spreading like wildflowers. I pulled out the new sign I had carved with my own hands, the words etched deep into oak. Freedom Fields, EST 1910. Restored 2024. I planted it into the earth. Solid, permanent, unshakable. As the sky turned purple and the first stars blinked awake, I whispered toward the horizon. This is for you, great-granddaddy. We kept the land. We kept the legacy. And no one will ever steal again. The fight was over. But the new story, the one written on truth, grit, and freedom, was just beginning.